All right, Laura, it looks like we're live. I'm just going to go over here to our Facebook page, give it a couple of minutes for people, a couple of seconds really, for people to hop on. Most have had a reminder that today is our business and politics series. So we're going to go ahead and get us kicked off. I'm Juliette Abdel, President and CEO of the Westminster Chamber of Commerce, and I am incredibly excited today to share with you the COVID series touching on business and politics. Our speaker today is Laura Long. Laura is one of our 2 contract lobbyists at the state capitol. During legislative session, they are there, boots on the ground, representing business. In the interim, they're sifting through and trying to make sense, so we're planning ahead and strategizing for how to best frame, the business message and business voice. If this is your first time landing on our page, then you are in for a treat. We've got so many videos that are on here, literally dating back into the second week of March. So make sure you click through the videos tab, and all of them are there for you, from electeds like our mayor, who shows up on Mondays with us, all the way to our county and state electeds sharing updates that county and state government is doing in wake of COVID-19. A lot of resources that are out there, a lot of PowerPoints that we've also shared on our COVID webpage. If you don't know what that webpage is, I'll make sure to include that into the comment section and post it on this video screen here in a second. But I don't want to eat up too much of Laura's time. I know she's got so much great information to share with us. If you have comments or questions, please be sure that you write them through so we know who's watching. We want to give you some shout outs and then be able to answer those comments and questions for you. One thing I wanted to share, and kind of why we selected this topic, was mainly because you don't really think about politics during this time. You're trying to survive, and you're trying to move forward and deal with mental, emotional health, and the family situation that you're in, and even the work situation that you might recently have faced that's changed. But no, as a Chamber of Commerce, we've been advocating since earlier on with partners at the U.S. Chamber for the federal relief. At the city level, we advocated with our city of Westminster for funding efforts based on the survey results we were getting from our overall business community. And as a result, we had that grant that showed up from our city council, $1.5 million, which quickly dissolved in about a 24-hour period. But if it was not for our advocacy efforts and really effectively sharing what our businesses' needs are, we wouldn't be able to seek solutions in a timely manner to help you meet your needs. So with that being said, I'll turn it over to Laura to get us started.
Well, thank you, Juliette. Thanks for having me, and good morning, everyone. I hope you're all doing well and staying sane and figuring out how to COVID. So today Juliette says, why should we care about business and politics? And whether or not you care about politics, trust me, politics cares about you. There are decisions being made about the future of our daily lives, about our economy, being made right now. So it's important to stay engaged so that you have a voice. And that's what Westminster Chamber of Commerce is here for. And that's what Jeff Wiest, my lobbying partner, and I are here to help you do as well. So today I'm going to talk about the governor's most recent announcement, what the remainder of the legislative session is going to look like, a little bit about the state budget, and the status of some key pieces of legislation that we're tracking before the legislature adjourned. Then, I will be taking questions, as Juliette said, throughout the talk. As I'm sure you're aware, the governor on Monday announced a transition from the stay-at-home order to a safer-at-home order. And I believe we have a handout that will be made available at the end of the talk with more information on that if you really want to get in the weeds and look at the chart. But essentially, on beginning next Monday, May 27th, we will be transitioning from the order to stay at home to a suggestion to stay at home. And along with that, offices will be able to open back up to 50% capacity, although they're still encouraging folks to do as much telecommuting as they can. Also, many retail stores that have been closed over the last month or so will be able to reopen with extreme social distancing and curbside pickup some strict rules around that, but at least we will be able to go shopping again for those of you who are missing our Main Street businesses. Personal services, salons, dog groomers, your personal trainer, services like that will also be allowed to open with some strict precautions. For the time being, bars, restaurants, breweries are still closed. However, we are in conversations with the governor's office right now about how to reopen those for the safety of employees, customers, and also how to, make people feel confident in the safety measures and precautions that we have taken. So that is ongoing. We're hoping that by mid-May, we'll be able to start opening bars and restaurants and breweries with maybe some limited capacity and some rules around safety and health. The legislature, meanwhile, plans to come back on May 18th. The Supreme Court ruled several weeks ago that they would be allowed to use up the remainder of the 53 days that were left in the session before we adjourned. It's looking like they probably won't take all 53 days. Leadership has been very clear that they would prefer to come in and maybe only be there for 3 weeks. There are a couple of constitutional things that we have to finish. We have a constitutional mandate to pass a balanced budget, to pass the School Finance Act. And then there are some what they're calling mission critical bills, sunsets of various programs and departments that have to be re-upped, or else those will go away and we would have to start from scratch. Nevertheless, there is in the Colorado Constitution the gavel amendment, which says that every bill that's introduced has to be heard in at least one committee. There are 350 bills left on the calendar, so I think it's a little bit of an open question whether or not the leadership will be able to wrangle all of their cats and get the various members to give up key bills that were very important to them before this all started. So in addition to mission critical, they're saying that they will hear COVID response bills. They want these to be bipartisan, non-controversial. And I've had a lot of conversations with different legislators, and I think everybody's trying to figure out how their pet projects are actually COVID related. So there's a question around what that means as well. But it's clear that, businesses and workers around the state there are new considerations that we will be talking about when we come back on May 18th.
So we have a couple of our counselors that are watching with us today, Counselor Seymour and Counselor Kathleen Scully. Thank you so much for tuning in. And it looks like we have State Representative Tracy Croft-Tharp, who's sharing that you are one of her favorite lobbyists. She's one of our favorite as well, and we are so glad that we have her advocating for us. So yes, carry on.
Representative Croft-Tharp is the chair of the House Business Committee and has been absolutely critical in making sure that the business needs and the other needs of the state are really well balanced. And I cannot stress enough how much we really, really appreciate Representative Croft-Tharp's leadership, and we wish her the best in November and hope she prevails in her Jefferson County Commissioner race, because she's fantastic, and I know that she'll serve the county just as well as she served the state in the business community. That was not planned, by the way. We just love her so much. So where was I? Mission critical bills. One of the biggest challenge coming back into session is that our state revenues right now are in free fall. We're looking at perhaps a $3 billion shortfall. As you know, there was $1.8 billion earmarked for the state of Colorado in the Federal CARES Act. We're still waiting on guidance from the U.S. Treasury on how that money can be spent. Right now, they're saying that it needs to be COVID related. And again, like the bills at the state level, a lot of that could be construed either really liberally or really conservatively. The conservative view is that it can only be used for PPE, buying new ventilators, things like that. But, as we know, if sales tax is completely stopped because Main Street business is closed down, that's absolutely COVID related too. So we'll see how that works out. The $3 billion shortfall, while it's just about 10% of the state budget, it actually represents about 20% of the money that is not from the federal government. And our federal funds are all earmarked. They cannot be reapportioned. So there's going to be some deep, deep cuts. And, when we adjourned back in May 13th or so, 14th, March 14th, forgive me, the state budget was almost completely finalized. So they're having to start over from scratch with drastically reduced revenues. So bills with fiscal notes are in a lot of trouble right now, and departments across the state have been tasked with cutting money out of their budgets for next year. So it's a pretty dire situation, and to be honest, folks that depend on appropriations from the state government are kind of freaking out right now.
I believe that.
So a number of bills that the business community was watching before we started, and we get questions about this a lot. There was Senate Bill 93, the arbitration bill, which luckily is going to Representative Kraft-Tharp's committee. If we don't have that fixed, maybe it'll just be dead. That would have been really damaging to businesses across the state in just about every area. So, we made a lot of progress on it in the Senate. Now that it's in the House, we feel like it's in pretty good hands. So we're feeling comfortable about that. There was talk about doing public option, and we think that that proposal is probably not moving forward this year. I think our legislators really understand that businesses have taken a huge hit. For some industries, it's kind of a bloodbath out there. And our focus, the business community and the chamber and those of us who represent businesses, are really concerned about getting people back to work first and foremost. We need those jobs to be there. And additional burdens on businesses is not what we need right now. Among those, people have been concerned about how the talks around the paid family and medical leave program are progressing. The proponents feel like this is absolutely COVID related, and this just proves the case. I think a lot of people in the business community are really concerned about what it looks like going forward, and what kind of burden that's going to be on small businesses in terms of holding jobs open, the premiums, whether it's a social insurance program that we'll all have to pay for, and numerous questions like that. So we know that leadership in both chambers would like to see something around family this year, but I think that it's been expressed to us that they're looking at a more scaled down version, something that we're sure can be implemented, and that won't have a devastating impact on small businesses. So talks around that are ongoing. Where they're largely centered around the points of agreement from the task force that met over the last interim, and then the points of disagreement and trying to iron those out. But questions of duration of leave, who's eligible, what the definition of family is, who pays for it, whether it's a social insurance program or a market-based solution, the size of the employers, whether we're going to align with federal family and medical leave criteria, which would make it easier for many of you to implement, and whether or not we're going to phase phase the program in are all being talked about right now. There is a ballot initiative on a paid family and medical leave program. They don't have the signatures yet. This is really biting into their time. The proponents say that they still have the ability to gather those signatures. And there are talks with the Secretary of State and the governor's office about changes that might be made to the signature gathering process. The governor has something that he would like on the ballot this year. And so he has been motivated in the past, I think, to think about maybe doing completely online signature gathering, like Facebook poll or something like that. You know, I heard one legislator say that they won't even need a legislature if that becomes the case, because everything will be on the ballot and the citizens will just junk up our Facebook news feeds with all kinds of interesting proposals. So we'll see where that goes. I think that there's risk on both sides if that is too open. For everything that one of us wants to see on the ballot, there's probably another 3 that we don't want to see on the ballot. So, you know, more information on that upcoming. How am I doing on time?
You're doing great on time, and we've got some questions too, if we want to take those up, and then we can go back to any notes that you also had to share. I know you've got so much great things. We have a lot of people that have come back on here with us. We have Ari, who is a member of our chamber that's kind of joined in and is just thanking us for doing these. We have Nick Klibenstein, Vanessa DeMont, and several others, our board members, Brian Dice and Wayne. This question is from one of our newer viewers, Joan, and Joan is sharing that there is a Jeffco telephone town hall, I believe tomorrow evening, so Thursday evening, and she's asking, are the county commissioners the true political power in reopening kind of business and our communities?
That's a really good question. As you may know, on Monday, the governor announced that Eagle County is requesting to be opened. They were one of the first to close down. There were a spike in COVID cases as far back as February or maybe before, because all the tourists coming to those ski areas were bringing it in. So they were quick to act. They were very aggressive, and they feel very confident right now that they're past the peak, and that with certain precautions, they should be allowed to reopen. I believe the governor is going to grant that request. So I think that, you know, other county commissioners who are really kind of on the front line of this, you know, politics becomes more relevant the closer it is to home. So your city council is important, county commissioners are important, state legislature is important, and arguably all of those are more important than our federal delegation, because they're really in the trenches with us and they're making decisions that affect us on a day-to-day basis. So I would say, yeah, it's, I would not be surprised if the county commissioners are the true political drivers in this.
Yeah, that's a great answer. And it definitely, I mean, politics is closer to home, that hits you quicker and harder than further removed in our state and even our federal and county levels. This question is from Councilor Dave DeMont, and he's sharing, you know, how to, again, related to counties, how do we see the counties Westminster is in reacting to this governor change? So as you're aware, Laura, Westminster is situated on Adams and Jefferson counties, so we kind of have a good amount of both counties. And how do we foresee those specific counties and the response to potentially the recent changes?
Yeah, I think that's a great question. And perhaps the city council could be helpful in maybe coordinating some responses from both Adams County commissioners and Jeffco commissioners, because it really is going to need to be a group effort for some of these, for Westminster in particular, that is bordering 2 counties.
Excellent. We have another question. I'm going to come back to you, Joan. I know you have another question, so I'm going to give a chance for a couple other folks to ask their questions and then come back to yours. Looks like this question is from candidate Vanessa DeMont. She's asking, can you elaborate on some of the special districts or agencies that are depending on some of those appropriations, how the community around can rally to help? How can the community tally around those that help us?
So that is a good question, and I know that a lot of the special districts and agencies are funded through property tax more than through general fund appropriations, and the governor has been really protective of property tax. For some of our businesses, property tax valuations are one of their main expenses through after rent or mortgage and personnel costs. So, to the extent that the business community has asked for forbearance on that or delays in payments, the governor's office has been really hesitant to do that because of the special districts, particularly if they have bond payments that they need to make and are relying on those coming in. So right now it's unclear exactly, as long as the real estate market doesn't tank, I think that many of those revenues will be safeguarded going forward. The question is, how are businesses going to manage all of the payments that are coming due? And I think that's still kind of an open question. There's a lot of angst and uncertainty around budget on all areas of the state.
Oh, absolutely. How do we keep paying what we need to when we're not getting the revenue that we're used to receiving, for sure. And yes, Joan, you're right. The telephone meeting is tonight. Looks like we do have a point of clarification from Councillor Seymour. County health officials do have the power to place in stricter guidelines. That's correct. So that was, I think that was a follow-up to a couple of questions related to the county that was above. And then I want to pull out Joan's question from up here, and then I'll turn it back over to you, Laura, to continue with your comments. She references that people that are unemployed are asking why some government people were not furloughed during the shutdown, that this might be very difficult or hard explaining some of those why some of those cuts didn't take place. I think it's
That's a tough question. Hard to answer diplomatically. I think some government workers are going to be furloughed. State budgets are really looking at cuts. I think
yeah, it'll be interesting to see what comes out of this. And I think we've seen this in a lot of local municipalities. Boulder has let go over 700 of their employees. Broomfield let go as well, and some in Denver, if I'm not mistaken. So I think it's been slow to move on some specific municipalities, but we recognize that, Joan, and I think we'll it's a little bit of an interesting situation that we're in.
Yeah, and note unemployment. That's a great transition to the final point that I wanted to make, which is the state's unemployment insurance trust fund. Mm-hmm. So, as you know, Coloradans who are unemployed are able to apply for benefits. That's a portion of what they made. And then through the CARES Act, they're also eligible for an additional $600 a week. So, it happens to be the case right now that many of our lower income workers, restaurant workers, and younger folks who may be in minimum wage jobs are actually making more on unemployment than they were working. So we've had reports of business owners reaching out to us saying, "What do we do? I've got this opportunity to reach back open, and I've been reaching out to my employees, and they don't want to come back to work because they make more than they were working for me." And so that's a problem. And I would say that we're really, honestly, I think Congress kind of screwed that up by not putting in I think it should be capped maybe at what you were making before. But so there's still ongoing work that needs to be done in that arena, and we'll have to have conversations around that. One of the problems is that, as you know, the unemployment insurance trust fund is paid into by employees, by employers, by premiums that we all pay on our payroll taxes. Right now, the fund is solvent, but it's likely to not stay solvent toward the end of the year or into next year. And if we begin to need to start borrowing from the federal government to continue to make the payments for the obligations that we have to our workers, that triggers a surcharge that is charged to all of the businesses in the state, further adding to their burdens and making it longer, I think, before things go back to normal in the economy. So it's a complicated situation, and I know that a lot of people, folks are feeling pain out there. Workers are feeling pain, and we have to continue to watch out for them and try to minimize that as much as possible. There's a lot of burdens on businesses too, and we need to figure out how to balance those needs.
I agree. Yeah. And you're absolutely right, Laura. In our effort to really provide those solutions as quickly as possible, to see it all unfold and where we'll be several months down, that's all yet to be determined. I mean, we're still seeing record numbers on unemployment. Our commissioners just shared that several days ago. Jeffco is one of the highest, if not the highest county to be applying for those benefits. So our businesses will definitely feel those with those employees, especially the ones that are choosing to stay on there. We've got some more questions and we're running low on time, so I want to rapid fire these for you. It's okay if we don't delve too deep. If we want to go back in and comment later on, we can do that as well. So I think this has been highly beneficial in my opinion. I think this is the most questions that we've received so far. So this comes from our board member, Wayne Anderson, and he's asking, which areas do you think will be impacted the most, will be most impacted by the impact on the budget?
I think there are across the board has been passed with reducing their budget by 20%. We've seen moratoriums on new capital construction, and so all the areas will feel most impacted.
Yeah, wow.
Discretionary spending, I think, is in trouble.
Across the grid, yeah. So this question is an interesting one, and we can come back from the lens of Westminster, from our transportation department as well, to kind of answer this. So know that you don't have to go into detail on city specific, but this is from Ashley, and Ashley's referencing that the Treasury just removed $500 million from transportation, and they'll continue to cut for next year's budget. And how will that impact Westminster's transportation? I think you can comment to this from the broad lens of statewide implications on our transportation system, and then we'll be happy to kind of come back with our city-specific transportation response.
I could take a stab at that. I think that that's enough of a detailed question that I should leave that to someone who can speak more directly to transportation.
Yeah, absolutely. And just know, Ashley, transportation has been a huge priority of ours as a chamber, as the coalition that we work with, and with both of our lobbyists out there advocating for the need to fund that in effective ways. So we'll get you a more specific answer that's for this. I know we're running low on time. I promised I'd post our westminsterchamber.biz/COVID-19-update. This is the website where we post any health announcements, orders that come from the governor's office, national orders. I know Trump released the support document in support of Colorado just recently. We posted that as well, and various by the numbers and educational trainings and PowerPoint slides that we've had over the course of the last month that we posted these webinars. So I wanted to kind of list that for you as well. We have Laura Long here from Wiest Capital Group. Laura is one of our 2 contract lobbyists at the state capitol that is supporting our business community and ensuring our voice is heard. We touched on several different things from the legislature gaveling back in, the probability and how long that they might stay whenever they do come back, priorities that they'll be giving to certain issues, 350 bills that are out there, and what makes one a priority over another. Ideally, it's the COVID caption or category that's surrounding it. And then we touched on several other things that Laura had. Do we have any additional remarks we want to make before we close this out, Laura?
No, just I'll try to get transportation information up on the comments afterwards.
Absolutely. Well, thank you so much, Laura. Thank you all for tuning in. Tomorrow, we are replacing our webinars with our town hall. So we do this every other week or so. We have our town hall tomorrow at 4 o'clock. To be able to dial in, you do need to register on our website. The event page is on our Facebook page. You just follow the link and register. Our town hall this time will feature Front Range Pharmalogic and Colorado Assisted Living Association, both of which will share how has COVID affected their industries, what have they done to adapt, and looking ahead, what does the future hold? You're encouraged to come, to listen in, to ask questions along the way. We'll record it and make it available later on our YouTube platform as well. But I do thank everyone for taking the time, especially Laura, out of your day to spend a few minutes with us, and to our counselors who have tuned in, our state representatives, and everyone else, new and old, that we've seen. Thank you for the comments and for viewing our video, and we'll be sure to hopefully see you again soon. Bye, Laura.
Bye.